Uh-oh. Not right now. So anyway, couple things that I wanted us to go over. By the way, good morning, both you guys. Glad to have you. I think you both know I'm down here in Arizona. My parents' house, what used to be my parents' house, now it's part of the estate. My mom is still alive, but she's in a home. So this house has been empty for over a year. So my wife and I are staying in it for the foreseeable future. But southern Arizona rocks when it comes to produce. Look at this grapefruit. That's a monster. Anyway, it's got a whole lot of skin on it and everything, but man, they're good down here. Anyway, that was that was my fun for the day. So I think you guys do remember Eli, short for Elijah. He joined us a couple times. He did contact me this week, and he gave us apologies for not being in our Saturday morning sessions. And I said, that's fine. Just participate to the level that you're able, either on our email list or our Facebook group or on Saturday mornings, or all three. It's totally up to you. And he said, oh, I didn't know. I thought it was all or nothing. And I said, no, just participate when you can. So he was real happy to hear that. So hopefully we'll see him doing a bit more posting or responding or whatever. But what he did say that I thought was pretty exciting is that he took some sort of a career development path at his company, whatever company that was, that number one, they're going to get him fully trained in cybersecurity. I think he said they're going to get him his Security Plus certification, and the plan that he agreed to is going to finish with him getting a cybersecurity intern job. So yeah, he's literally on the fast track to become a cybersecurity intern. And I said, more power to you, man. Again, a lot of people misunderstand what we do here as if it's some sort of training. It's not. It's a bunch of like-minded people that are interested in helping each other achieve and grow within the cybersecurity arena. So, whatever you're able to participate, that's good. That's enough. That will work for us. Any discussions about that, guys, while we're just here talking?
Take your opportunities when you get them. And one of my good news this past week, my community college was looking for someone to stand up a Security Plus study group, and I went ahead and volunteered. So
very nice.
This summer, I'm going to be a student leader of the Security Plus study group at Howard Community College, and right now we're just doing communication plans and standing up different platforms. We're trying to decide if we want Canvas or Slack. But when the opportunities come, please take them or even apply to them. The worst they can say is no. Right.
Microsoft owns Slack now, right?
I believe so, but I have to double check that, Scotty.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. If you take a look at the coloration of Slack now, it sort of looks like it's going to be added to part of the Microsoft Office group. So
Microsoft's been on a buying spree, so I'm sure they have that.
Yep. Okay, very cool. Well, speaking of Microsoft, Ron, did you have anything before we move on? Anything to share? Any questions before we get going? No, okay. So this has been a week, a big week. I think I announced it on our Facebook group. Both Microsoft and Google announced zero-day vulnerabilities that both were being actively exploited. Now, just a quick recap for zero-day. What a zero-day means is we just found code. In other words, the software has been installed. It's out in the wild. It's in production. Somebody, however many customers you have, somebody has already installed it and is using it, and you find this vulnerability in it. In other words, what 0 day is referring to is, this is how many days you have to get this patched or fixed or upgraded or removed. So a 0 day vulnerability means you've got this much time to fix it. All right, so that's what 0 day refers to. And it's a vulnerability until somebody actually is going in and doing things that, you discover for whatever reason, and you say, if you do this and this and this, and you install this, or you move this over here, or you ping this or whatever, you can gain control of this system or parts of the system, or you can down certain parts of the system, or you can turn the system into a bot where it actually becomes part of your botnet or whatever. Those are all unintended consequences of your programs. So both Google Chrome and Office 365, actually it's Microsoft Exchange, have announced this week vulnerabilities. So it's pretty crazy out there. Chris, did you have any hubbub that you heard from your groups on this?
Mute here, hang on. Let me get out of mute here. The only hubbubs that I get was the same as yours. One thing is someone's throwing out statistics that this is an uptake of different things they're hitting. For example, remote desktop protocols. There were millions of attempts on remote desktop protocols.
Right.
The other thing I heard, and it was in my mind, it just escaped me. If it comes back to me, I'll talk later.
Okay. Okay. Curiously, there was I was reading through some old SOPs that we had. And I think we're getting ready for an Inspector General shakedown, an audit, a series of audits. And so I was reading some old SOPs, and they talked in the server group, they talked about RDP. And so, they asked me to provide input, so I provided input. And I said, by the way, are we still supposed to be using RDP? Haven't heard back from them because RDP is sort of like their child. And, but like you have noted, Chris, RDP has vulnerabilities. It can be exploited. And as recently as, 5 years ago, when I first, 6 years now, when I joined Department of Labor, they said that they would only allow RDP, because of its vulnerabilities, they would only allow RDP within the confines of the enclave. In other words, all the border routers would block RDP. And I'm like, that's not a great approach. But, so there are things you can do to hopefully mitigate it. But if RDP still has the same vulnerabilities or similar vulnerabilities, my vote is to not use it at all. Period. Find something else, SSH or, something like that doesn't have the same vulnerabilities. But so yeah, the Microsoft Exchange one, didn't really hear too much about that one, or Google Chrome actually. All I heard was that they both were announced. They have both been addressed by the federal government at the CISA, and they're telling everybody. In fact, Microsoft announced what's called an out-of-band patch. Have you guys, what's your understanding of out-of-band? Ron, do you know what out-of-band refers to?
I'll take a guess. It's some other company that's trying to do a patch to the coding.
Okay. Okay, Chris?
Microsoft usually has a time frame of doing patches, monthly, quarterly, seasonal, different type. It could be depending on what type of updates, and they strict that timeline unless they're absolutely sure that this thing is an emergency. And pretty much this is Microsoft saying it's an emergency, and you better do it right now, because if I remember all the articles I've been reading, they say it's being actively exploited right this moment.
It sure is.
Do it right now.
Yeah. So, Ron, the use of the phrase out of band typically means not part of our normal schedule. In other words, it's important enough to bypass the schedule or override the schedule. So out of band typically means important. So if you see anything that refers to out of band, that means this is outside of what even we in the security community would consider to be normal. So just think about it that way. Out of band is a big deal. You start hearing Microsoft out of band, holy smokes. You know, just to give you an idea of how big Microsoft is, I remember in the late 90s, 1990s, so that was what, 24 years ago, 23 years ago, I was with the President's Commission on Critical Infrastructure Protection under Bill Clinton, and we had the security chief from Microsoft sitting in our office in Roslyn, Virginia, and we were having a conference with him, and we were there with DOD, the Department of Defense, and there was something going on, and there was some sort of application or operating system or whatever, and the DOD said, this has to get fixed. And we all turned to Microsoft, and the guy there at Microsoft said, well, we'll take that under advisement. And the guy from DOD says, you don't understand. We represent 2.5 million licenses for Microsoft, and if you don't get this fixed immediately, we're going to consider going to something else. And the guy from Microsoft, just cool as a cucumber, said, well, we'll take that under advisement. In other words, 2 million licenses doesn't make that big a deal to Microsoft. So, you know, Microsoft is a monster. And so if Microsoft says out of band, well, look at Google. Google Chrome is the #1 browser on the planet. If it has a vulnerability, yikes. You know, billions, maybe hundreds of millions, but so Microsoft and Google, you don't get much bigger than that. You don't get bigger. So active exploits, both of them were being actively exploited at the time the owner announced it. So that was like, all hands on deck, get this patched now. Don't go home until you get it done, sort of thing. So that was a big deal this week. From a lesson learned standpoint, you always have to be prepared for the unthinkable. In every case, you're always preparing for an attack. You're always setting yourself up. You're staffing, you are resourcing, you are configuring for what you should think in your mind as being an eventual and inevitable attack. How do you handle it? For example, if you, Chris, I don't know if you've seen the ESOC, Security Operations Center, but I mean, they've got a wall full of monitors and all that sort of stuff, and, you know, various phones on the table, and you know, all sorts of network drops and charging blocks and stuff, just sitting there waiting. Something goes on, everybody plugs in. Hey, show us this on the screen, just like they do in the movies. And what if nothing occurs? Was it money wasted? No, absolutely not. You have set up your security operations center so that if something occurs, and if you are forced to call a Tiger team, you're ready to go. So it's preparedness. You have to be prepared, and you have to anticipate that nothing you do in the form of prevention will be considered enough. So that's That's one of the things that you can do even if, you don't have Google Chrome or you don't have Microsoft Exchange or that sort of thing. If it hasn't hit you yet, like they used to say at our church, keep on living. Because it's gonna. Any questions? Okay. Wanted to cover this one that I just popped up this morning. Actually, I put it out 2 days ago, but we had so much news this week, I just wanted to sort of let it simmer for a while, so I delayed the pop-up until this morning. QR codes. QR codes. You guys know what QR codes are, right? You see them on the back of your the scanner box, or you see them on, dentists' offices now, or whatever. People are going to these monstrous QR codes. Why? Because they are easier than to remember, nape of the neck, massagecenter.org or something like that. Because then people are like, oh, I got to type that up. No, just walk up with your phone and go click. Mm-hmm. And your phone interprets the QR code, and then your phone does whatever the QR code says. Well, the problem is, what if the QR code has been capitalized on? And I was thinking about this because I read it, and you see the article. Imagine there being a big event like, oh gosh, I don't know, a concert. And somebody walking through the concert with this big, I'll use this as an example, with this big sign that says, free game, sign up here, QR code. No, free game, sign up here, QR code. And they're flashing it all over the place. People are like, oh, yeah. And then, if you look at it, well, I need to look at it. And people start clicking. You could end up with hundreds of people and then clicking on it. And then you get this little link that says, there's a membership fee. Do you agree to this membership fee? Sure. Bam, $200 or whatever, $2. But you imagine being on network TV, and instead of, in the end zone when they're kicking the goal, instead of holding up a John 3:16 sign, you're holding up a QR code. 2 million people just saw your QR code. Wait, run that back. Click. Mm-hmm. And then also when you go, we've got a printer shop here in southern Arizona, a printing shop. And you walk in and they say, here's our latest promotion. I think I've even seen it in Harbor Freight. It's a printed sheet of 8.5 by 11 paper, white paper, out of their printer that says, here's our latest promotions. Click here. How difficult do you think it would be to mock up a Harbor Freight page with a cash, send us money for your free trial or whatever, and, oh, by the way, that's right, now, guess who accepts Bitcoin? Visa. Mm-hmm. And Bitcoin is not trackable. So you could literally say, here's my code. They click it. It goes to an untraceable account. You're good. It's incredible. So QR codes being all, super accessible and easy to use and stuff, the big problem with a QR code is you don't know what a good QR code is compared to a bad one because you don't read machine language. So somebody pops up a QR code, you have to trust them or trust the security features on your phone to catch it. And if all of you guys remember WannaCry WannaCry, if you remember, it was a encrypted zip file extension, or that came as an email attachment. When they unzipped it, it brought up a Microsoft Word document template that when they clicked on it, it fired up a Visual Basic script that announced right there on the script, this could be malicious. Are you sure you want to, invoke this? And however many people did it, it immediately started encrypting all of your drives. WannaCry. So, it was a zip file. You're not supposed to do anything with zip file. Well, number one, don't open email unless it's from someone you know. Number two, when you're looking at zip files, especially encrypted zip files, mail systems can't examine them. You open a document template, you execute it, Microsoft Office itself pops up and says, whoa, hold on, this could be a problem. Are you sure you want to do this? The best practice, the reminder to everybody is, those warnings are there for a reason. Don't just click through and say, yeah. I'm smarter than the average, who knows what, Nigerian prince or whatever. Be careful. The best practice is have all of those warnings in place. I know that the DoD STIGs, for more than 20 years, probably closer to 25 years, have mandated that there be that Logon security banner. Any activity that uses the DoD STIGs must put that big blue screen that says, watch out, this could be, there could be problems here, or, there's no presumption of privacy or whatever. And then down at the bottom it says, do you accept it? And like I asked a couple weeks ago, how many of you have read that all the way through? By the way, the one for the U.S. Department of Labor, I wrote it. Actually, I pulled, much of it off of the Computer Security Handbook, because the one they had up there was junk. And when they...
It was one line.
What's that?
It was just one line, if I remember correctly.
No, they had a big monstrous one, but nobody read it because it had misspelling in it. It referred to a manual, and it said if people can't use this and don't know what to do, refer them to the security manual. And so I read through it all the way, and I said, guys, where's the security manual? Oh, I don't know. This is what we were given. So we put it in. Wrong answer, guys. Mm-hmm. I had to fight to get that banner changed to something that came from this Computer Security Handbook. The engineers, somehow they said, we got this from security. And everyone in security, because why? I had to go ask them. Everyone in security said, we didn't send it. We didn't give that to them. I said, have you guys read this? So, anyway, I submitted a change request. I said, this, it's not my part to play in this, but what you have there is not a good warning banner. By the way, to get back to the original reason, the DoD STIGs require a logon warning banner. But in the change request, the way it started to go through, it said, Scotty Ward wants us to change this to this. I'm like, dudes, you're killing me. It shouldn't matter who submits this. This logon warning banner is now showing up on the desktop of the Secretary of Labor. And he's going to call the Assistant Secretary and say, what kind of garbage are you putting on our screens? If he reads it, which he obviously didn't. But anyway, the point is, make sure that, you have all those things in place, regardless of how irritating your customers think they are. And make sure they read it. The stuff that's in the Logon warning banner is also in their rules of behavior. It says there's no presumption of privacy and, et cetera, et cetera. You won't let anybody else use this system. You won't divulge your password if you use it. You won't give out your PIN or your PIV card. All those sorts of things are in the rules of behavior. But they're also in that monstrous blue banner that pops up that everybody and his brother bypasses without reading. I think I told you a couple weeks ago when I'm sitting with a group of IT folks. I always do this. Chris, you'll hear me if you ever sit in a room with me doing this. And you go through like the end user license agreement. What's the one for Apple? It's like 13 pages long. What does everybody do? Scroll to the bottom, click OK. And as I'm doing it, I at least do it slowly, and I say things like, oh, firstborn child, yeah, arm and a leg, yeah, sign over your bank accounts, yeah. And then I go to the bottom and say, okay, in other words, I have just agreed to whatever these folks have specified, even if it's absurd. I've agreed to it. Mm-hmm. So be careful. Be careful. So QR codes, big deal. Also, next one, Cicada 3301. Chris, had you ever heard of this one?
I've just recently saw the trailer for the movie, and I'm trying to convince my wife to watch it because one of her favorite guys is on it, Ron Funches. But okay. I've also heard of the internet phenomenon of the puzzles, and a lot of people trying to guess what it is. Is it a NSA recruitment thing? Is it just a bunch of hackers just having fun, or what is it kind of situation? Mm-hmm.
Ron, if you haven't watched it, I do highly recommend that you go take a look at it. It's about I think it's a 15-minute YouTube video where they talk about this. And Cicada 3301, just to give you a quick descriptor, and by the way, this is not a spoiler alert. Cicada is the name of the group that they called themselves Cicada, and they had this little picture of a cicada that they used in a lot of their stuff. 3301 is a prime number, and that had to do with what Cicada was doing. The 3301 was, if you add this prime number with two other prime numbers, then you'll get a website address, or, multiply them together or whatever. But it was an internet scavenger hunt, for lack of a better way of describing it. And it was pretty intense. There were very few people that went all the way through originally. I think it was released in 2005, but I think it was 2005. But they came up with this thing that basically said, do you want to try this out? And it didn't give any reason why, but it was posted in a place where there are a lot of hackers hang out, good and bad hackers. And so anyway, it was an internet scavenger hunt, and nobody knows who did it. Nobody knows who started it. Some people say that they were actually some of the people that completed it, and by the end of the video, they point out that they're still waiting for their contact. But it is fascinating to understand how people can combine various technologies and make things even more secure. I'll give you an example. For the President's Commission on Critical Infrastructure Protection, we were located within the DoD network, Department of Defense. So we were, whatever .mil was part of what we were doing. And I would send out passwords. True story. I would send out passwords to the people that had new accounts with us. How could I do that? How could you send a password to somebody who is brand new? Fred, here's your login, here's your password. Any ideas?
Yeah, you really can unless they're part of your organization.
What was that?
Yeah, you really can't send out those passwords unless they're somehow tied to your organization.
You can or you can't?
Yeah, you can.
Well, yes, I created the accounts and I gave them default passwords, but how can you do it to where it's not going to get it's not going to compromise your security?
Yeah, I don't know. There will probably be a leak at some point.
No, I was able to do it. It's sort of there is a principle that you shouldn't base your life story on or your next paycheck on, but it can be done. It's called security through obscurity, for lack of a better way of describing it. What I would do is I would send them in email or whatever, here's your login, go to this network access point, and here's your login. And then I would fax them their passcode, nothing else, just a word. Because no one could put those two together. One arrived through one means, one arrived through the other, and there was no attribution that tied the two together. The only thing that somebody could have seen is if they occurred around the same time. But they would have had to be monitoring all communication points to a particular person or group or whatever. So yeah, I would fax passwords. But it was literally just, and it didn't even say to Tom Smith. I would call the guy and say, are you standing at your fax machine? Yep. What's the number? Okay. Here it is. Did you get it? Yep. So you can do it. There are ways to do it. In fact, and this is something I just speculated. I got no approval from anybody to ever do it, but I postulated how you could actually have an unclassified notification for a classified network monitoring system. Unclassified notification for a classified network monitoring system. I'll share that with you someday. But yeah. So anyway, Cicada 3301 points out how you can mix and match various modalities, various methods, various media, and make things thousands of times more difficult to get into, more difficult to understand, etc. The issue is, you're trusting that people aren't as smart as you. That's the lesson learned. The folks at Cicada 3301 basically said, if you're as smart as us, you'll get to the end of this. Wow. And it was fun. Watch that video. Chris, it'll be a spoiler for you if you're going to watch a movie on it, but that little video was superb. It really was. That being said, we, as the CyberSecurity Sensei group, could put together something like our own internet scavenger hunt where we can demonstrate, put to use some of the techniques that we're learning here. Or we could participate in something like a capture the flag competition. Chris, do you have a minute to tell us about what you know about capture the flags?
I do. In fact, I've been a twice competitor of the President's Cup. I goose-egged the first one, and second time around I got 900 points, which is an improvement, but was going up against people from U.S. Cyber Command and pretty much the professionals, and they are good. When I say they're good, they know. And there are other capture the flags out there, and one of my links in the Facebook on the Facebook group had a video who the guy is suggesting doing capture the flags, and pretty much joining bug counting and all that kind of stuff. But all Capture the Flag tournament is applying your cybersecurity knowledge to different problems of different degrees. It's Jeopardy style. Basically, there could be anything from open source intelligence. Hey, here's a picture of a place anywhere in the globe. Can you find that? Can you identify where it is by either their coordinates or the actual address? And you run it through different programs to see where you can find it. Another one could be, hey, here we received this encrypted message. Can you break the encryption? And basically what you do is you copy paste, and there's different encryption algorithms on the internet, and you get a little flag statement that says, here's the flag statement. You copy and paste that flag statement, that's how you get the points. Or a final example would be, hey, you're a analyst, and we're going to give you a PCAP file, which is a Wireshark file, a network packet capture. There's something that went on. Can you please identify the attacker, what the attacker did, and what the file is? And by the way, the file is the flag. And there, you get your points there. And you basically go through Wireshark and analyze the whole packet and figure out who the attacker is, get the IP address of the attacker. The name of the file could be a flag. The actual protocol could be used to be a flag. But basically, you get these little flags that you plug in, and that's how they calculate the points for you. And there's always different sorry, there's a wind going on in my outside, and I'm going to lock the door in a moment. But that's what Capture the Flag is. Basically a bunch of puzzles that is in a competition aspect, and you get points for getting the flag.
Very cool. I think one of the most important things to remember for either the Internet scavenger hunt idea or Capture the Flag is they are basically fishbowl type exercises. In other words, you're not going out and saying, hey, let's see if we can, let's see if we can trash Wells Fargo or something like that. It's a designed element that everyone goes into and is controlled. So you are free to do things that you would not do out in the open, that you would not do in the wild, for example.
A lot of them are done on virtual machines, either internal to the website, or they actually have saved virtual machines that will give boundaries for you, like, oh, you can't go outside this boundary. If you go outside this boundary, you're considered out of bounds. Turn off the virtual machine, you don't get any points situation.
Right. If any of you are Star Trek fans, you remember the whatever it was, Maru exercise that they supposedly gave Jim Kirk, that it was an unwinnable situation, but they wanted to see how these young captains would act, and so what Jim Kirk did was he reprogrammed the simulation to where he won. So that was this sort of thing that could not be done in real life. That would not be something that Capture the Flag or even an Internet scavenger hunt would be designed to do. It lays out, if you will, the path along which you should be going, and it's used to hone your skills. It's used to be able to demonstrate, participate, think about things, put them all together, and then do something with them. It's not just sitting and talking. It's not just reading a book and, doing an exam or whatever. So normal groups can participate in Capture the Flag or Internet scavenger hunts. They're quite possible. But like Chris pointed out, there are some monsters out there that are really good at what they do, and they love just slaying their competition. To them, that's a badge of, accomplishment. So, number one, if we might be interested in doing it, we might be able to find something. But number two, we better expect to go in there and get spanked and then learn from it.
And even if you get spanked, you learn from it big time.
Sure do.
When I goose egged the first time in the President's Cup, it gave me a list of things that, hey, Chris, you need to learn these things if you don't want to get spanked again. And that's how I went from 0 points to 900 points for the second one. The second one ended up with 900 points because I understood how to read a PCAP.
Very good. So give that some thought, guys. Maybe we can do this at some point in the future. Chris, I'm going to have to get going. Again, I'm headed off to my next meeting. I'm literally in a class for the next 4.5 hours, but it's on finances. So, my wife and I are both going to it. That's about all I had for the moment. So I'm going to stop the recording. Anybody have any last minute? In the Army, they called it saved rounds. Any last minute conversations? Good morning, Doug, by the way. Welcome. Good to have you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Scotty. Just want to say real quickly that I don't mean to be irrespectful by showing up late, but I have some issues and I have to, I've told you about them. And so, and that's why I've been coming in late sometimes until I feel better, recover. Sometimes not at all. But
sure. Forgiven.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, guys. I'm going to have to get running. I'm going to leave this running so you guys can finish up.